people, man. These fucking people who don't step foot in the woods, right? Who don't live there.
I firmly believe that parts of this video are going to make you laugh. The extent of that laugh, whether you pee yourself a little bit, where you throw yourself back in a chair, it's probably going to vary. But some of this stuff is hilarious. Specifically, what I'm referring to is a CTV political analyst has a total meltdown. Drops F-bombs, F this and F that and F these conservatives, and come on, we got a commonality, which is we got to attack these fires, man. F you for blah, 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 blah. Look, most people can understand. I don't say agree, but I say understand that, hey, when there's like a common enemy, in this case, a fire, we do have to come together as a society and say, okay, this is like the main objective. It's a huge threat. It poses a massive threat, and we need to like come together collectively and combat this. So, you know, be cautious of what you're doing is the approach that should have been taken. But mandating, saying if you go on this like hiking trail, if you step 5 feet into this outdoor space, you're going to get a $25,000 fine is preposterous. And the reasoning behind some of the governments in Canada doing that is because they're taking emergency resources from the front lines of fighting the fire, diverting that to potentially go and rescue you if you trip and fall and break your leg on a hiking trail while there's like these crazy outbreaks of the fires. The idea of what they're doing is like, I understand the intention as someone who's in the military. I totally understand the emergency preparedness intention behind that. But that's like saying, hey, we don't have a lifeguard at the beach, so you're not allowed to swim, because if something were to happen to you, it would take far too long for an emergency responder to come and get you. Like, that's why they literally have signs at beaches that say lifeguard not on duty, swim at your own risks. Like, just mandating things like this with these crazy financial penalties, that's not the one all be all answer. You can encourage people to say, hey, you know what? We've got these fires breaking out and we're deploying so much resources there. If you go into the back country, just know that you are doing that. You are assuming the risk because we just don't have the resources to come and help you. Like, actually, if your car breaks down, if you get injured, if your boat capsizes, we can't come and get you. So you are assuming your own risk. Okay. Capiche? Awesome. Like, that should have been the approach, but it wasn't. So we're taking a look at that and some new announcements of the fires, some American news, a whole bunch of stuff in this video. So I do hope you stick around for the full thing. One heck of an intro. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage you all to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It does really help grow the channel. There's a lot to take a look at in this video, and yeah, I think you guys are gonna like this one. We're gonna start off with what's going on in Washington, D.C., because the police chief Pamela Smith has absolutely no idea who's in control right now, because Trump just deployed to federally take over D.C.
The chain of command is now?
What does that mean?
Well, is it Pam Bondi speaking to the mayor, speaking to you, or how does this work?
So
the chief of police of DC was just asked, so who's the chain of command? What does that mean? The chief says, bro, are you in control, or is there the federal agents that are in control?
the executive order is clear. The president has requested MPD services, and our home rule charter outlines the process. The president designated Attorney General Bondi as his proxy to request services through me.
The police chief, she's got no idea what they, them is doing. Then we got to take a look at what's going on with Mark Carney, because, well, last week, Carney set out the government's plan to transform Canada's lumber industry. Let's have a look.
The forest industry is a pillar of the Canadian economy. It supports 200,000 jobs across the country, contributes more than $20 billion directly to our GDP. It's the economic backbone of nearly 300 rural, Indigenous, and northern communities, many of them right here in British Columbia. But despite our advantages, certain of our major Canadian industries are being severely impacted by U.S. trade. These strategic sectors include autos, steel, aluminum, copper, pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, and of course, softwood lumber. At this hinge moment in history, Canada is starting to shift from reliance to resilience. Throughout, we will build Canada strong with Canadian workers, Canadian technology, Canadian lumber, and Canadian values.
So when he talks about we're shifting off of reliance and more towards resilience, he's referring to we're shifting away from basically trade with America, but then relying more on the European Union, because ultimately that's what Mark Carney wants, is to be a part of the European Union. He did, after all, say Canada is the most European of non-European countries. Extremely freaking bizarre. And so I want to pass the question off to you. How do you feel about this? It feels like Canada, like this guy is trying to reshape how Canada does business, less with America, more with Europe. I mean, Muslim values or Canadian values. I get the heebie-jeebies when it comes to Mark Carney. I'll be honest. I get the weird heebie-jeebies. Now we're going to take a look at what's going on with Freedom Convoy organizer Tamara Lich, who is basically on trial or waiting for the final verdict of everything that's happened, right? Mischief. Apparently it's 7 years in prison is what she could be facing, which is insane because nobody really for Mischief has ever gotten anything serious. But for some reason, they're trying to make her a political example. Let's just have a look at this clip of a podcast.
I think my spirits are pretty good. Like I said earlier, I'm not bitter. I don't choose to be a victim. I believe victimhood is a choice, and I can either approach this, feeling sorry for myself and falling into a depression, or I can just keep living my best life, and that's what I intend to do. We'll see. Everything happens for a reason, and even when I was arrested, Jason, you've probably heard me say this before, but I recognized it immediately. That it was thy will, not my will. And even when I was arrested, I was like, okay, you're obviously, you've exposed so much. You've used this to expose so much. You're obviously not done with me yet. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't have any anxiety, and they don't scare me.
They shouldn't, but you are a much more understanding person than I, because I see what they're doing to you, and I see that, and I know why they're doing it to you, and it's the why that really infuriates me.
To see, this is why it has to happen this way, and it was.
Tamara Lich and Chris Barber are honestly being put through the ringer, and it's extremely sad to see our political system. Our judicial system, do this to them through, political warfare and trying to make examples out of these two Canadian citizens. And I feel like if it was anyone else in that position, I personally, if that was me, I don't think I'd be as calm as what Tamara and Chris Barber are. So they are very, very, very strong individuals. And I'd love to know what you guys think about this. Actually, let me know your comments down below, because they've already been to jail. They've already served time. So one of the things that people are hypothesizing over when it comes to that final verdict is that it would be like their punishment would be already time served, and then they would just be free to go, right? Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about that. Next up, we're taking a look at a very funny clip. Just shift the mood a little bit away from the doom and gloom and more of the haha towards the liberals. So this guy right here, he is Scott Reed is a reoccurring guest as a political analyst on CTV. And this is what he said recently in a segment on CTV, okay, about the fires happening on the East Coast.
Like these fucking people, man, these fucking people who don't step foot in the woods, right? Who don't live there, and they don't have any practical experience with this. They decide that this is a nice National Review, modern MAGA argument that they want to elicit. Like, What's the defining characteristic of MAGA, of this whole sort of, post-COVID pushback, conservative sort of thought line, small c conservative, whatever it is, all that convoy conservatism, right? It's selfishness. It's just undisguised selfishness. I want to fucking do it. I have no sense of community, no sense of obligation to my neighbors, family, friends. If it's what I want to do, well, then I'm a hero. Like, fuck you. We have obligations. We live in a society. If a place is on fire, we rally together to help them. You don't say, well, this is an abrogation of my rights. Like, just fuck right off to these people. Like,
so no one said that this infringes on my rights until it started infringing on people's rights. Like, we literally have a charter of rights and freedoms for this exact reason. Totally on board with this sense of community that, hey, shit is actually hitting the fan and there's these fires that are out of control and we need to mitigate the risk. So, neighbors, watch your neighbors. Don't snitch on them, but watch your neighbors and just make sure everyone's being a good person, right? Don't have fires. Fire bans are like a pretty common thing seasonally in Canada, and we're used to it. And to be honest, no one's really using solely, like, you're not 100% reliant in the summertime on cooking on an open flame or heating on an open flame, because it's just so freaking hot anyways that it doesn't make any sense. So a fire ban, you're not taking away someone's like necessity because it's hot. No one's required to, no one's using a fire every day to, like, if it doesn't happen, they're going to die. But taking away people's ability to just walk hiking trails, like, there's a reason why a lot of beaches have no lifeguard on duty signs. Swim at your own risk, right? Why is it so difficult for people like Scott Reed to understand that? If somebody wants to walk a trail that they've been walking forever, that's like a mental and a physical health thing. It's exercise. Yeah, it sucks that there's, like, just on the other side of the forest, it's literally burning down. But what do you want the average person to do? Stay inside and, like, not do anything about it? Like, you can't just wait to die. You have to be able to also kind of live your life. And putting out warnings and cautioning people of what's going on is always the better approach than mandating and basically ripping away people's ability to do whatever they want. Like, it's like if you go hiking, you kind of assume that risk anyways, that, hey, wild animals can attack me and there's not really much I can immediately do about it. Or a tree could fall and, on my car while I'm driving. There's not really much anything anyone else can do about it. And then I would have to troubleshoot my way out of there. Like that, there's a certain kind of self-reliance and risk that someone assumes anyways when they go do those things. But all of that is void when it comes to these, these issues where the government just tries to mandate things. It's bizarre. Why not put out the warnings? Why mandate it? That's what people are very pissed about. And, well, this next part is not so funny. Haha. It might piss you off. Susan Holt provides a bit of an update on what's going on with the New Brunswick fires and policies. Let's have a look.
We've got about a few weeks left in summer before kids are back at school, and of course many New Brunswickers naturally want to get back into the forest. What will it take for that to happen?
What will it take for that to happen?
A whole bunch of rain.
Yeah, a lot of rain. That's, I was going to say, an act of God. What we need is rain. We need the forests to get the water that they need to not be as dry and as in tinder-ready conditions that fires can start with just the slightest bit of heat that could come from a motorized vehicle, that could come from a lens, from a spark or otherwise. So if everybody can get out their best rain song, rain dance, rain prayers, that's what it'll take to get to the point where we know that the risk of fires is down, and we're encouraging people to, it's a great time to go out and take your dog for a walk on the beach. But I do want to speak to the people who are frustrated by the notion of an inability to go hiking or fishing, and I understand it's something that we all love to do as New Brunswickers, is to get out into the woods and to do that with our family, our friends, our pets, and otherwise. And the notion that me going for a walk in the woods is going to cause a fire, I can understand why people think that that's ridiculous. But the reality is, it's not that you might cause a fire. It's that if you're out there walking in the woods and you break your leg, we're not going to come and get you, because we have emergency responders that are out focused on a fire that is threatening the lives of New Brunswickers. And if you take your boat out fishing in a pond in Crown Land and you capsize, we're not going to be able to come and help you out, because our first responders are focused on an immediate and serious threat to our province. And so it's the possibility of diverting emergency resources away from where they are really needed, which is why we're asking New Brunswickers. This is something we're asking them to do. There are private woods where you can do what you want in New Brunswick, but we're asking you to make the safe choice for our first responders, for your neighbors, and for our woods.
Okay, so if that's all they were doing, if they were just asking people, that would be different. But all of these weird financial penalties and things like that, that's not just asking. You're no longer giving people an option. And that can be dated back to the biggest example, which was COVID. Liberals and our government still don't view that as mandating. It was like, no, of course you have an option. You can take it or not. Well, if you don't take it, then your entire life changes and you lose your job. And it's just like a very bizarre way of saying it's not a mandate and it's not a forceful thing. So again, like, you can encourage people to do that, but with these financial penalties is a form of mandating, and that's what people are very upset about.
We can do that on the public lands that the government has authority over, and we're asking you to recognize that, yes, you want to go for a walk in the woods. Okay, well, like, there's a lovely walk just nearby that doesn't threaten our first responders and our response to a dozen fires in this province that are getting worse by the day, and we need to keep our trails clear, our roads clear. We need to have as minimal barriers to the effective delivery of firefighting and to putting these out as possible. So it is an ask. We are asking New Brunswickers, please find somewhere else to walk with your friends and family right now, so that we can keep the risk of having to care for you in those places that are hard for us to reach, while we care for the people whose homes may be under threat in Irishtown, for the people that are experiencing fires outside the Miramichi and Bathurst. I want to say thank you to everybody who has been.
Again, if it was just left at that, if it was just left at the, hey, we're just asking you, please work with us. Please, we are in a deep state of panic. Our resources are thin. And if this gets out of control, then so many people's lives could be destroyed and evacuations are going to have to incur. And we're just asking people. No financial penalties. You still have your free will. You still have your charter of rights. But we're just asking you. Like, that is the appropriate way as a leader to go about this. But they start losing people with these $25,000 fines and all of that stuff. And like, it's ridiculous to try to play the nice person of saying, please, we're just asking you, but then say, well, yeah, but we're also going to make your fucking life miserable if we catch you doing it. Like, that's not asking, man. That's a form of mandating. That's manipulative. That's gross. That's not Canadian values. Canada historically does a phenomenal job of coming together collectively when shit hits the fan. Like, that I can absolutely agree on. And yes, since COVID, things have been a little bit dicier, just a little bit, but it's also because of the way that things are being brought up. If you want people to come together, then you just have to ask and be sincere and a genuine person, because that's what people can see. Even as a politician, holy crap, man. Even if you're like, oh, I hated politician, if you just ask politely, people are like, yeah, okay, well, that makes sense. You laid out the facts, your opinion. Maybe you're a little bit like vulnerable when you're saying it, like, hey man, like we're kind of screwed, man. It'd be super great if Canadians can come together, put our differences aside and do this. Like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But the freaking $25,000 financial penalty, like, that's just that's just where you start losing people, right? So it's one or the other. Either you're mandating it or you're politely asking, but you can't politely ask and then also on the back end mandate it. It's freaking weird. Anyways, I'd love to know what you guys think down below, but this isn't the only place where this is happening. So far, it's been the East Coast, who to be to buy to guys, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, and Labrador. PEI is kind of staying quiet about this on their little island. It varies, the different financial penalties for different things in those, in those three areas. But it's also now going to likely happen in Ontario because parts of Ontario are under fire. Kawartha Lakes has big kind of out of control fires. And well, now they're saying Ottawa is under a sweltering heat wave.
Well, it's another scorcher in the capital. It was expected to be the hottest day of the summer, and although we didn't quite get there, this extreme heat wave has some hunkering down inside their air-conditioned homes, while others are finding creative ways to stay cool. The temperature climbing to nearly 34 degrees this afternoon, the humidity making it feel more like 39. CTV's Josh Morano joins us live in studio to tell us how people and even pets are beating the heat out there, Josh.
Yeah, Patricia, this heat isn't slowing down everyone down, from dogs lapping up bowls of water to swimmers at Dow's Lake. There are plenty of ways residents are still enjoying summer in the city. At Bruce Pit, Ruby is making sure to stay hydrated while playing with owner Sebastian Belil on one of the hottest days of the year.
Obviously, just being well equipped, bringing a nice big bottle of water, cutting through some shady areas, just trying to keep cool. Also for myself too. Water,
a hot commodity for these pooches, with temperatures reaching as high as 34 degrees. But that's not stopping people from getting out and enjoying the day.
We try to at least twice a week, and just come out nice and early in the morning, especially if we know it's going to be a cloudless heat wave day like this. But yeah, that's a nice little family routine I have.
We wanted to get out for a walk. I'm kind of regretting it now, but we came to Bruce Pit because there's at least some shade.
For some, shade is simply not enough. Instead, choosing a dip in Dow's Lake.
We're going to try for a couple hours, but they can go and jump in the water. It's fine. They're cooling off.
And for others, a quick run through the splash pad always does the trick.
It always feels good to go out and get some fresh air, you know? Yeah, I know we have ACs, but then fresh air is always better.
Environment Canada says the extreme heat isn't just uncomfortable, it can also be dangerous, and is reminding people to avoid the sun's most intense hours.
The hottest time of day is typically between 12 and 7, let's say. UV index is kind of high in those midday hours. So if you go out first thing in the morning or kind of later in the evening, if you're able to, those can be ways to kind of avoid that direct sun in those hottest hours of the day. And more than anything, just, try to make sure you're staying hydrated as we get through this heat wave.
For residents like Belil and Ruby, not taking any chances, sticking to the shade and keeping the walk short before heading back to a cool home.
We just finished our first lap, and I think it'll be our last. We wanted to get out here as early as we could in the morning, try and beat the big heat wave of this afternoon, and stay cool and get back home.
And with temperatures staying high, health officials are encouraging people to drink plenty of water, take breaks in shade or air conditioning.
If you don't drink water, that's going to be considered self-harm, and that could lead to a $10,000 fine. If you're dehydrated and put a strain on our healthcare system, that's your fault, and we're going to fine you for it, is what the Canadian government is likely to say in the coming days. I don't know. Probably not. I mean, absolutely not. That wouldn't be a thing, but that's not out of the realm of possibilities based off of the current trajectory. Anyways, we're going to completely move away from the fires, and we're going to take a look at China, because China just hit Canada with temporary 75.8% duties or tariffs on Canadian canola. China on Tuesday announced preliminary anti-dumping duties on Canadian canola imports, a fresh escalation in the year-long trade dispute that began with Ottawa's imposition of tariffs on Chinese EVs imports last August. The provisional rate will be set to 75.8% effective from Thursday, the Ministry of Commerce said in a statement. Oh my goodness. China, the world's largest importer of canola, also known as Rapeseed sources nearly all of its supplies from the product of the product from Canada. The steep duties would likely all but end imports if they are maintained. This is huge. Who will pay a 75% deposit to bring Canadian canola to China? It is like telling Canada that we don't need your canola. Thank you very much, said one Singapore-based oilseed trader. Canada's Ministry of Commerce said on Tuesday that anti-dumping probe launched in September 2024 had found that Canada's agricultural sector, particularly the canola industry, had benefited from substantial government subsidies and preferential policies. So that's getting a little crazy. Not only is America in a dick measuring contest with China, but now apparently Canada is too, and that's not going to end well. Like we have no real leg to stand on. What are we going to do? 600% tariffs on EVs that they don't even bring to Canada anyways. Like I've never seen a Chinese EV in Canada. I don't think so. I just, because it's like the tariffs are crazy expensive. So love to know what you guys think about that one. But now let's take a look here at the video report from this new tariff or anti-dumping announcement.
Another escalation in the trade dispute between China and Canada. This morning, China announced a preliminary anti-dumping duty on Canadian canola imports. The provisional rate will be set at nearly 76% starting Thursday. It's a fresh escalation in a year-long trade dispute that began with Ottawa imposing tariffs on Chinese EV imports last summer. China is the world's biggest importer of canola and sources nearly all of its supplies of product from Canada. Joining me now to discuss is Guy St-Jacques, former Canadian ambassador to China. Good morning. As always, great to have you with us. So let's begin with this news regarding China and Canada before we get to what's going on with the U.S. How significant is this move by China? Did we see this coming?
Yes, it was to be expected. In fact, China had said that it would retaliate, and in fact, they had mentioned that they could impose 100% tariffs, similar to the 100% tariffs that we impose on electric vehicles. They said also that they would hit our pork export and our seafood export, and this was in direct retaliation to the tariffs that we had imposed on China. I would say on this that, of course, the previous government in Ottawa had done this to align its policy on China with that of Washington, but we didn't get any brownie points. And of course, President Trump is adamant to try to restrict other countries doing trade with China, while himself he is trying to increase exports to China, including soya, that in a way could replace our canola exports.
Well, let's talk about this extended truce between China and the U.S. that was announced by President Trump. Why do you think he did that? What is your sense of where the talks stand?
Well, I think that President Trump didn't have much of a choice because China is in a very strong position to negotiate with the Americans. Of course, they need the American market for their export. The United States, together with the European Union, are the two main markets for China. 20% of Chinese GDP comes from exports. And when we look at the figure of the second quarter, China managed to increase its exports to the world by 7.5%. Its exports to the USA went down by 23%, but China made a major effort to diversify its trade. It has zero tariff now with 54 African countries, and as a result, exports to Africa have been up 33%. It has been up 19% to ASEAN. They have two cards that they will play to the full extent against the U.S. They control most of the world production of critical minerals and rare earths. Rare earths are used to make heavy magnets that are used in the aeronautical industry, in the car industry, in armament, and therefore Trump has no choice but to find a way to continue to have access. In exchange, change. China has been able to get more microchips from the United States, from NVIDIA. This is important for its own development. They also were able to secure ethane, which is a chemical that is used in the petrochemical industry. But add to this the fact that Xi Jinping has invited President Trump to come to China, and they will use this to the full extent to extract other concessions from the.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I personally think that trade with Canada and China is only going to get better once trade with America and China start getting better. I mean, yes, we have the ability to remove tariffs, reduce tariffs, or even just remove them completely on Chinese electric vehicles, which would bring down the cost of electric vehicles in Canada, which is what the government of Canada wants. So it's kind of weird that they're shooting themselves in the foot. Like, we want electric vehicles in Canada because, climate change, but we don't want Teslas because Elon Musk bad, and we don't want Chinese EVs because China bad. It's all very kind of emotionally confusing, or it's overly politicized. Like, if you want something, you can get it for a good price, but we don't want that because that's our political enemy. Anyways, it's all very bizarre. Global tensions are just bananas right now, and the whole world is kind of waiting in anticipation to see what is going to happen on Friday when Trump meets with Putin in Alaska or Russia. I don't know. It's confusing because he said Alaska, but also said Russia. So maybe it's going to be a mix of both. We're going to have to wait and see how that does play out. But that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes the video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you did, it'd be super awesome for you guys to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in another video. Bye for now.